Hey YouTube, what is up? This is Karen San Diego and I am back with another video that I think is going to make you very happy. But before I get into what that video is, I need you to stop what you're doing, go down below, click that red subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and become a part of my family. It's very important to me that you do that and you won't regret it, because I'm going to be giving you some bomb content, guys. Like, some real bomb content is coming your way. And first, today's video, I want to get right into it. I don't want to make this too long, even though I can be a little bit of a chatty Cathy. I don't want to make this too long. This video is going to be about how to get a job teaching without an education degree. So I have two other videos on my channel talking about how to get a job in retail. Your girl has grown up. I used to work in retail back when I was in college, but after graduating, I started teaching. I am a middle school teacher and I have a degree, a bachelor's degree in psychology. So my bachelor's degree has nothing to do with my job, which is teaching. And today I'm gonna come here and teach you how to get a job teaching. So being an actual teacher, not a teacher's assistant, not someone that works in a school and helps, an actual teacher without an education degree. First things first, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So you can't just want to be a teacher and you do not graduate from college. That is going to be the baseline requirement that you have to have. Wait, my air conditioner's on? Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, so you have to have a bachelor's degree. It can be in any content area as long as you do have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college. Once you have a bachelor's degree, your next step is going to be to apply to charter schools. And I'm looking at my phone because I have all my notes here that I wanted to make sure that I tell you. So your next thing you're going to want to do is apply to charter schools. Public schools almost always are going to require that you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in education, whereas charters are a lot more lenient on what on whether or not their employees have education degrees. Sometimes you can find like Catholic schools and other kinds of private schools that also will take uncertified teachers, but for the most part, you're gonna have the most luck with charter schools. That's not to say that you shouldn't also apply to other types of schools, but if you want a more guaranteed shot, apply to charter schools. When applying to a charter school, try to find a friend of yours, or it doesn't even have to really be a friend. It can be an acquaintance. It can be somebody you follow on Instagram. It can be somebody you're friends with on Facebook, your mom's friend that goes to church with this. You don't have to really know them that well, but find someone that works in that school to refer you. Referrals are almost always going to put your resume on the top of the pile, and we're talking about a computer here. So the referral is going to make your application more noticeable. And also, the person that's giving you the referral, even though they may not know you that well, they're most likely not gonna have an issue giving you a referral, because 9 times out of 10 that person gets a referral bonus. So they're gonna want to get their money. So they're not gonna have a problem referring you, and it's not gonna be weird at all, trust me. So reach out to somebody you know that works in a charter school and see if they are able to refer you to a job in their network. Okay, next thing is gonna be like the most obvious question I think people are gonna ask is that, like, what if I've never been a teacher before? Like, I have no experience teaching. How am I supposed to just get a job teaching? And that's a really good question. But charter schools that are allowing teachers who are not certified, they are not certified and don't have an education degree, they know that you do not have teaching experience. But you should have had job experience, and you need to list the job experience that you have that pertains to teaching in the best way. So those type of experiences you're going to want to list, or organization, time management, teamwork, and leadership skills. Those skills that you can get from other jobs are going to transfer into your job teaching, even though it may not seem like the clearest connection. Those skills that you get from having a different job really do help as a teacher. Another skill that you're going to want to be able to show that you have is going to be probably one of the most difficult skills to show if you have held no formal teaching experience. Some people applying for jobs at charter schools that don't have an education degree, they don't have an education degree, but they do have experience like working in daycares or babysitting or something like that. So they may have this skill, and the skill I'm talking about is behavior management. So if you're an adult who has never formally worked in a job where you were teaching children or looking after children, you may be like, how am I supposed to have behavior management skills? I work with adults, I don't have to manage behaviors, that doesn't make any sense. How do I get this? Well, I understand that, and understand that so do the people that are going to be interviewing you. They understand that you may not have direct experience having to manage behaviors, especially that of children. However, you should be able to know what behavior management looks like. So even if you necessarily have not ever done it, you should be able to speak to it. So you have to understand what kind of behavior management skills that you want to have while you're working in order to manage a classroom successfully. So what does that look like? My main thing when it comes to managing a classroom, especially when you teach middle school and you're dealing with kids who are in that awkward age where they feel like they're adults yet they're still kids, like the number one thing in order to keep that classroom together is respect. Kids are just like adults. They give you what you give them. So if you are respectful to them and you treat them like human beings, they're going to give that back to you. But if you come in automatically on day one trying to be a tyrant, it's going to backfire. That isn't going to work. You have to be respectful, and you also have to be authentic. Authenticity is a genuine number. It's in the top 3 on how to successfully manage a classroom, especially when kids are starting to get older. Also, with behavior management, you want to also know that you want to have a calm and serious classroom. And the only way for you to have a calm and serious classroom is for you to be a calm and serious person. If you walk into the class and you're on 10 and you're doing 1,000 things, what do you think the kids are gonna do? Like, they're gonna be on that same level as you. They're gonna be acting that same way that you're acting. And they're gonna give you that energy. That energy, you're coming at them all crazy. They're gonna give you that crazy energy right back. Like, that's just natural. Adults do it and kids do it. And sometimes you forget that kids are just people in smaller packages, but they're people, so they're gonna react the same way you would react. If somebody came at you on level 10, you are most likely gonna try to meet them there, and kids are definitely going to do this. So if you want a calm and serious classroom, you need to be calm and serious, and you don't need teaching experience to understand that concept. So take that into your interview and understand what you want your classroom to look like. Have that idea from ahead of time, knowing that, okay, this is what I want my classroom to look like. So because I want my classroom to look like this, I need to model this behavior, and that is how I will be successful. Okay, another tip I have is probably, I think, one of the most important ones, hands down, and that is, know that this is something that you really want to commit to. Do not decide that you want to come and be a teacher because it gives you a pretty paycheck, because it kind of does. It can, especially in the charter school system, teaching in New York City can pay pretty well, but don't do it for that reason. If you're in this just trying to get a paycheck, you are going to get nothing out of it. It is not going to be successful for you, and you're going to fail. We're dealing with children, and our job is something that is extremely sensitive, and kids get extremely attached to you. So you coming in and doing this for a paycheck and then leaving when you're tired and you want a bigger paycheck is not going to be okay. You cannot just decide that, like, I'm teaching because it pays and I'm gonna move on eventually. You have to know that this is something that you want to do and you want to commit to. When you're committed to something, it's going to feel so much different than being there for your paycheck. Being there for your paycheck is going to cause you to be miserable. There's a lot going on in charter schools that can be stressful. We work really long hours. Nobody wants to be doing something for a really long time that they don't actually want to do. So make sure that you're committed, and make sure that you actually have a passion for helping children and education before you get into this field. Because if you do not have those passions, I promise you that you are going to be miserable. Trust me, I see it every day. Another tip, when you're applying to be a teacher, make sure that whatever it is that you are thinking about teaching, make sure that you actually know what you're talking about. So like me, I hate when people say that they're not math people, which I used to say all the time. I do struggle in math. I always have since I was a kid. However, I do know the basics, but even with me saying that I just know the basics, I would never teach mathematics, just because I know that that is not my strong point. I'm humble enough to know that I am not the best at that, so I'm not going to teach that. I am someone who who is very literate. I can read very well. I can interpret books very well, so I could teach English. However, the subject that I've chosen to teach is history, because that is something that I look into on my own time. I am very knowledgeable in history, and because of that, I teach it because I can teach it from a place of passion. Whatever it is that you decide to teach, whether you have a degree in that subject area or not, you always want it to be something that you can speak about passionately. If you love math, teach math. If you love science and are constantly thinking about science and chemistry, and then teach that. If you're a mini historian like myself and you find yourself drawn to those type of topics, teach history. If you love to read, teach English. If none of these things stick out to you and you are not interested in teaching any of these subjects, there are so many electives that you can teach. You could even pitch a new one if it isn't something that's existing at that school. There is the performing arts, so there's dance, there's theater, there's computer science, there's art, there's chess, there's debate, soccer, any type of sport. There's so many different electives that can be taught, and sometimes for people who do not see themselves necessarily wanting to teach any of the core subjects, you can teach an elective. My next key point is that you have to have an open mind. Charter schools are relatively new concepts, and because of that, they're always changing. Like anything new, when you first start off, you're trying to find your groove and you're trying to figure out what works. So charter schools are no different. Unlike public schools, because charter schools are really new, they tend to have a really young staff. And that's because they're hiring a lot of people fresh out of college who do not have a degree in education, just like you. And everybody is kind of pretty much trying to figure things out at the same time. So because of that, it's gonna be a roller coaster. There are gonna be things that you don't agree with. There are gonna be things that you don't like. But trial and error is how you figure things out when you're new. Think of it as a young child trying to figure things out. They're going to do things through trial and error. They're gonna try things, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. When you're working in a charter school, that's exactly what day-to-day life is gonna be like. And you have to have an open mind and be really ready and willing to try things that you may not necessarily agree with. And if trying new things and keeping it fresh and new is not your thing, then this is not going to be the job for you. Things are going to be constantly changing, constantly. Whether it's practices that you have to follow, especially when it comes to people, because charter schools tend to have an extremely high turnover rate, not because the schools suck, but because everybody that works there is young. And like I said, a lot of the time people are fresh out of college. This may be one of their first jobs, and because of that, like, they're not committed. Millennials tend to be very uncommitted to things that we do, and because of that, people are constantly moving around. But you have to be aware of that. Like, I understand, like, everybody wants a job, but be aware that when you're constantly moving around, there are children that you're leaving behind who grew attached to you. And that is who we do it for. We do this job, this crazy stressful job, where I come into work at 7:30. I don't leave sometimes till after 5, sometimes 6, sometimes there's been times where I've even left later than that. And that just comes with the territory. But when you're doing it for the kids and you're not doing it for the money, it becomes a little easier to allow yourself to work that much. Like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, but it is a really good job. But it does pay well, but you have to have the passion for it, like I said in the beginning of the video. My next tip would be for when you're on the interview. So once you've submitted that application, or you got a referral, or however it is that you got yourself in the door, on the interview, you need to take into account everything that I just said in this video. So you have to come in there, be bubbly, be smiley, have an open mind. They're going to be saying a lot of things to you. They're going to get a lot of information at once, and some of it is going to sound outrageous. Some of it is going to be like, but that's not how we did it when I was in school. That's not how my favorite teacher did it. And even on my interview, I remember people like constantly saying things like that. Well, my favorite teacher did this. And like, this isn't your favorite teacher's school. Like, things are going to be different. And if they're telling you things about how they do things, listen. Pay attention. Talk to people that work for that school. Watch YouTube videos about that school. All these new charter schools have YouTube channels that you can watch and kind of get an idea of what their main focuses are. Look on their website. Look at their About Us, their mission statements. Study all of that. Try to really understand who the school is. One of the main things that most charter schools are going to have in their mission statement is about closing the achievement gap. And what that basically means is that children who go to school in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods there is a big gap in learning versus kids who go to school in higher socioeconomic neighborhoods. So kids that are going to school who are of low parents are of lower income are not learning on the same level as kids who are learning in richer neighborhoods, causing these kids to not do as well on standardized tests. Because regardless of how well you're doing in school, standardized tests like the Regents, the state exams, when you in middle school you have those, and the SATs and ACTs, those are standardized. So whether or not you went to a school in a low socioeconomic neighborhood or a higher socioeconomic neighborhood, you're gonna take the same test. So when a school is talking about closing that achievement gap, it's about making it so what these kids are learning in this neighborhood is going to be the same as what these kids are learning over here, so that when they all come together to take this standardized test, they are on a level playing field. And most charter schools is going to want to talk about that level playing field and getting us to where education is equal for all. That is going to be, no matter what charter school you apply to, I bet you that that is one of their key principles. Closing the achievement gap and getting everybody, regardless of income, on the same level playing field, so they can compete to get into the best colleges as anybody else, regardless of how much money their parents make. And that alone should be something that can resonate with you, whether you're from a lower income family or a higher income family. You should be able to understand that people should be getting equal education regardless of how much their parents make. Like, that sounds ridiculous that certain kids would be put at a disadvantage because of how much money their parents make. So take that into your interview and take passion from that. If you're maybe you're not that passionate about teaching, but you do believe that everybody should have equal education, let that be what drives you, because that is going to be important. Speaking to that on your interview is going to show that you really did your research. So you want to speak to that. Also, you want to speak to whatever else it is that that specific school cares a lot about. Every charter school is going to care about the achievement gap. However, not every charter school is going to be focused more on technology. You have certain schools that do focus heavily on technology. Certain schools focus on heavier, whatever. Certain schools focus more on literacy. Certain schools focus more on talents. Like, there's different things. Regardless of, depending on what school you're applying to, they're gonna have a focus. You wanna figure out what that is. Do not go to the interview unprepared. Figure out what that is, and every time you're answering a question, you wanna speak to that. If it's technology, talk about your experience with technology. Talk about your things that you do well. Talk about how you think technology can affect education. Literacy, of course, is an easy one. You need to be able to read to do anything. And schools that focus heavily on literacy, especially younger grades, like focusing on literacy for kids who are in like pre-K, that is going to be really important to how they do later on in life. Being able to read for these standardized tests, and part of closing the achievement gap is always going to be making sure that everybody is literate. Being how well you can read is going to affect how well you could do on a test, just because of interpreting the questions. And charter schools will be on your interview. Understanding all of these concepts about education is going to help you ace that interview. Trust me. Okay, those are all the tips that I have for you today. If you still have any questions, feel free to drop them in the description box. I will get back to you. If you feel like I skipped a lot and you feel like there's a lot that I didn't say, let me know that you want another video like this, and I'll put up a part 2. I just personally can't think right now of anything else that is really worth saying, so I'm gonna cut this video here, but please let me know, and I will upload part 2 as soon as possible. So until then, make sure that you subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.